Adam Hayes, joined by my co-host to my left, Bob Paden. Across from us is Bobby Haskett with FabACab. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for inviting me, guys. Thank you.
Thanks for being on.
Yeah, for sure.
So tell us about FabACab.
Yeah, so FabACab is an elevator interior provider, and we service all the United States. Yeah, so we sell to the elevator contractors for the pretty stuff that when you walk inside an elevator.
Okay. Yeah. So how does one become aware that you exist or that there's a need for that service?
Yeah. So a lot of that would be the elevator industry, because of the structure of the industry and all the rules and regulations. There's a very small group, if you will, that is allowed to work on your elevators. And
so it's a certification then?
Yeah. So anybody that puts our system in has got to be a licensed elevator mechanic in most states.
Okay.
So, so the people that find us is actually through their elevator contractor most of the time. Now, we do deal with some property managers that find us online, at FabACab.com.
Yeah.
They can see us there. But, most of the time it's going to be your elevator contractor. But, if anybody's out there looking for a new elevator, we can definitely guide them in the right direction for sure.
Right.
Okay. I love the niche. I mean, we were talking before, right, that we started recording. What a neat niche for a business.
Right.
Just, it's not interiors to conference rooms. It's not, it's for elevators.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's kind of the forgotten landscape, if you want to call
so
it.
So tell us how you got involved in this business. Did you acquire the business or is it something you founded?
We founded.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I can kind of condense it a little bit, but, I had a business before this one, and, I was out of town, and, my mom had happened to get sick. And terminally sick. And so I came home. I traveled a lot. So I came home, was with her a little bit until she passed. And then a good friend of mine, lifelong buddy of mine, got with me and invited me to be the VP of his sales at his company. And why I was trying to help my dad out and make sure everything is calm here. And I said, I can do that for a little bit until I get everything. Well, it so happened that we sold the elevator industry some components. And with that, over my time being sales and speaking with the elevator, I seen a great need for a elevator interior provider that really listened to the end user, the people putting it in, if you will.
Yeah.
And so it got our wheels turning. We said, hey, let's look into this, a little bit further. At that point, we had only done wraps, which is like on the outside of the lobby area, if you will, and doing some handrails and stuff like that, specialty stainless stuff. And we just started listening. And over time, we kind of figured out it's, hey, this is something we all really look into. And it was quite a bigger mountain than we ever expected, rules and regulations, because the elevators, is in the business of moving people, obviously.
Yeah.
The safety is through the roof, in a good way.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we noticed is we just kind of sat back and took a few months to really deep dive into the positives and negatives about what we were getting ready to step into. And, the positives absolutely outweighed the negatives. So we said, let's go ahead and do it. And we just started.
And what year was that?
Digging in. That was 2014 is when we decided we was going to go ahead and go. So the first 6 months before we'd done anything, one thing that I done is I went out to lunch 3 times a week. And I was very specific in who I was targeting. I wanted to talk with the elevator sales reps. I wanted to talk to the elevator superintendents, the guys that runs, and I wanted to talk to the elevator mechanics. My most important thing there is I wanted to find what the business and the industry was missing in those different buckets, if you will. The one thing I think a lot of people do is forget about everybody involved in the bucket of business. A lot of people.
You just don't hit the button and it shows up magically.
You're exactly right. A lot of mechanics actually, it said to me when we went to lunch that, hey, we've been in this business 30 years and we've never had anybody come and ask our opinion.
Yeah.
I thought that was very strong, and then, and with their feedback and with we seeing what in our mind wasn't right about the business out there that's currently out there. We decided to go ahead and take all that feedback, compile it, and build the company that we have today.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Give us an example maybe of one big thing that you kind of see is maybe universal.
Yeah. The one universal thing that I would see is in building the company is capital.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge obstacle that all of us don't think about. I kind of joke when I have people come up to me and say, "Hey, I'm starting a business." I said, "Well, take what you think you need and double it,
Okay. Right.
or triple it."
Yeah.
But I think in the overall, what was really eye-opening to us is how well we were received with doing a little homework up front. So if the listeners out there could really get anything on that end of it, is really do your research and talk to the people that you're going to be selling to and see what they want, not what you think they want.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's marketing advice, by the
Yeah,
way.
exactly.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
So let's say you when you did that, what was one kind of theme that kind of just really stuck out?
Yeah. So what the biggest theme, and we still have that today, is simplify a process that's made difficult.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we couldn't pinpoint why was it made so difficult over the years. We just wanted to simplify that process. And what I think a lot that people could, learn from that is just simplify whatever you're getting ready to go do. Simplify it. Find out what the customer doesn't like about what they're getting currently,
And get rid of it.
And just simplify it. Bring it down. You don't need a bunch of rainbows, flowers, and bows, and let's see what's important to the customer, not what you think is the best.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's called the theory of extraction. If I remember, I literally just read this last week somewhere.
Right.
But it's like, what can you just eliminate?
Yes. What do you need to do more of, and what do you need to do less of? Yeah.
Very much so.
Yep.
Yeah. And what we noticed early on too is that, and we're still learning, we've been going strong for over 9 years now.
Yeah.
And I think what makes us continue to get better is realizing what we're really not good at.
Yeah.
That was very eye-opening to me. Me and my partner as well, we had a certain skill set that really works well. But when it came to building processes and stuff, we realized that, we had to get key people in the company that is smarter than we are.
Nice.
Right.
And you got to set your view of yourself aside, is a good way to say it.
Yeah.
And say, hey, I'm not an expert at this. And if we're going to continue to grow, we need to get someone in here that is.
Yes, exactly.
Love hearing that.
Yeah.
Part of my personal growth, yours is, letting go of the things that we aren't good at.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, as
And it's
business
hard.
owners. Yeah.
It is hard.
Yeah.
Because by nature of being a business owner, you're a bit of a control freak, right? I mean,
Yes.
you really
Yeah.
are.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe you don't become that
Well,
later.
yeah, I think that goes with caring, right?
Correct.
Typically, business owners really care about what they're doing. And I think a large part of caring and wanting to carry through the experience of what we care about to our customers, that's probably why most of us have that,
Agree.
little bit of control or desire to control things.
Absolutely. And in my opinion, that as you mature in business, the more you can let that go, the better off you and your company's going to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you've been in business 9 years.
Yes, sir.
Tell us a little bit about that, how that journey has been. Has there been segments of it, right?
Very much so. Very much so. When, I share a good story, my partner, which is our president of our company, his name is Josh Anderson. A story I like to tell is, he's definitely in the right seat at our company. He leads our company. He's got a great visionary mind. And we just opened the business. Second weekend, I walk into his office. I'm getting ready to leave on a trip to go call on customers. And he's on the computer and writing notes. And I said, hey, man, what are you doing? I'm thinking he's looking up at potential customers. He said, I'm writing our employee handbook. And I said, hey, man, I think that's the last thing we need to do right now. And for most people, especially in the sales mind like I have,
Sure.
why are we doing that right now when we don't even know if it's going to go? With Josh's vision, he was very very straightforward and said, listen, we're going to build this company where we're going to need this, and I want to go ahead and get it knocked out.
Right.
Nice.
And I very cool, I remind him a lot of that, you know, and having I think what was a changer for me is up to this point, the businesses that I've been involved in is basically I was the shot caller, if you will. It was a one-man show type thing. I'm the guy. And it took us a while to jive together.
Find your rhythm.
It really did.
Yeah.
And I think that, and it had nothing to do with really personalities. It's what we envisioned. We had to just settle into what we're good at.
Right.
And accept I'm not the best in that. So that's why he's the president of the company and I lead sales,
Right.
as a director,
Sure.
and it works well. Set your ego aside.
Yeah.
I knew right off he was the guy to be the president. We all knew that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So for the listeners and viewers out there, can kind of paint a picture.
Yeah. So what we provide is everything inside the elevator. So that's a good way to say it. So if you walk into an elevator and the door is closed and you look around,
Yeah.
we provide pretty much everything that looks pretty in there.
Okay.
Ceilings,
Carpet to the walls.
yep,
to the ceiling,
walls,
lighting.
ceilings, lighting, handrails, everything like that. When it comes to the electronics, once again, because of the rules, that's more of an elevator contractor.
Right.
But that's what we provide. Yeah, and we sell all over the U.S. It's really cool. We sell a lot of colleges, and along the way, it was such a you have such a high when you first start and you get your first orders and you get and
Sure.
I miss that.
Yeah.
I miss that. I was
Sure.
talking to my partner before before I came and done this podcast, and I let him know, I miss those. I don't have quite those highs anymore. Do you guys see that too?
I think I know what you mean, right?
Yeah.
It's an endorphin rush. Right?
Absolutely.
Because you're
Really, you're like-
experiencing
Yeah.
something that you haven't experienced.
Yes.
Somebody
Sure.
finds value in my ideas.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And you're kind of, it was a good driver for me, which I had to learn to have different drivers the longer that you're in business.
Yes.
That's for sure.
That's a good
Yeah.
concept. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because a sale today, while important, right, and continues to be important, it's different than it was at startup level.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh,
So
yeah.
stage one.
Yeah. Startup level, I'm trying to take anything we can,
Right.
and now we're very selective on what we take. We don't want any quote bad work,
Yeah.
Right.
that doesn't fit our team and doesn't fit our processes that we've put in place.
Yeah.
Yep. It's okay to say no.
So how does one determine what they want, and are they aware that they can choose what goes in that cab?
Yeah, so that's a great question. You typically, the way that our process works is we get a phone call from the elevator contractor, and at that point, what happens is they'll say, "Hey, I've got customer ABC over here that has a building with 30 elevators in it,
Mhm.
and they're looking for something." One thing that we really stand out in our industry about is we do what's called design sessions.
Mm.
So what we do on the behalf of our customer, and we call this person that owns the office building the end user, if you will.
Sure.
What we do in a service that we learned early on while interviewing those different people is that they were looking for someone to take the headaches of being an interior designer
Yeah.
with their customers. So what we do is we step in at that point. We usually do it over Zoom, and we'll get on and just say, "Hey, tell me a little bit about your facility," because what we're really good at and we really shine on, I'm very proud of, is that we are there to advocate for the customer of what they need, not always what they want.
Right.
You sure don't want an all glass elevator if you have the public
Correct.
in and out of your elevator.
Right. Yeah.
So what's
You got a
really
lot of
nice,
Windex, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and it's dangerous for them. It can break and so forth.
Yeah.
So what we try to do is find out from the end user first and foremost, what is your building? What kind of traffic is your building getting?
Right.
And then we start building the design from that point.
Yeah.
There is tons of rules and regulations on what kind of materials you could put inside because
Sure.
of fire ratings and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Weight, I'm assuming as well.
yeah, oh, absolutely. Weight, finishes, sharp edges. When you're dealing with the public, there's a lot to take into consideration. But what's really nice is when we get that end user on the phone, it's kind of two things happen. Number one, we are always looking to delight our customer. Always. I love that. That's a Warren Buffett comment that I love, is if you just look after delighting your customer and really stay focused on that, you're not going to lose.
Right.
Okay. So the way that we're able to delight the customer that buys our product to put it in and their end user that's making a decision is we step in, save our customer some time, but we're helping that end user. We're loving on them. We're getting them educated on what materials they need in there, sending the samples on our customers' behalf. And when we perfected that, our sales started growing exponentially.
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Are typically your customers, whether it be the end user or the occupier of the building, whatever the right term is, right? Do you do, I'll call it, pick an office tower downtown.
Sure.
That has 30 different businesses in it.
Yep.
How does that work compared to someone, I have my own building and it's my brand and my desire?
Yes.
Are those kind of two separate buckets or not?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I would say they're actually in the same bucket because most of the time, the occupants of the building don't have a lot of say in it, which does not hurt my feelings because the more people you get in a room trying to decide of a color,
It's like herding cats.
Yes.
Yeah.
it doesn't go well. So, the person that's an individual building owner comes to us, and I think the only difference is he's spending his own money.
Sure.
Versus you get into more of a corporate style where, you either have a group of investors or,
Sure.
you got a property manager, they've just got a budget, they got to stick to it.
Right. Yeah.
So that's how they would be dealt with a little different there is budget and what they're looking for. It seems like the building owner.
Is it easier to work with that constraint though, in some ways? If they'd say, here's
Keep
our
it
budget
simpler.
X, Y, Z, right?
Absolutely.
And you say, okay, great. Now let's talk about this, this, and this. Now I've got that answered. Now, okay, I can go optimize your budget and meet your need.
Absolutely. Every time. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That is the ideal customer, if you will.
Yeah.
That clearly knows their budget.
Yep.
Clearly knows what they have to
And
spend.
it's realistic, right? You can do it within that constraint.
That's right.
I'd like to redo my interior for $1,000,
Yeah.
please, right?
It's very.
I'm sorry, we're breaking up. I'm going to have to.
Yes. I want to call you back.
I'm gonna have to call you back.
Yeah. But what you'll notice is that, because there's so many rules and regulations and so much testing that must take place after our product is put in, the price tag is substantial.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure. Yeah.
So that even puts an exclamation, in my opinion, on the time that you need to take with that end user and realize no matter how big the company is, they're spending a substantial amount of money and we need to respect that.
Sure.
You're right. What, just give me an idea, or Bob and I an idea. What's the life cycle of that? And in other words, is that product typically going to last 5 years, 10 years, 20, 25? Yeah. What's kind of the life expectancy of, the interior design of a elevator cab?
Yeah, for sure. I would say the most driving factor of that is the materials that you're going to use inside of there.
Sure.
Right.
If someone, and we get this a lot, they say, hey, I don't have a very big budget. What we say is you're going to get 7 to 10 years out of that elevator interior if it's
lucky.
a public access building.
Right.
And you're going to get some vandalism in there and stuff. And, what we find that they have the best success is we have some interiors that'll last 20 years. The end user customer only has to spend about 30% more to get that 20-year life. But what is kind of
but that doubles the life, right?
It doubles the life. You would think.
But do they care about that double life?
They do not.
Then they sell the building.
They're like, hey, I'm not going to be here in 10 years to make that decision.
You wouldn't believe how many times we're told that. You said about selling the building. They just want to look nice. They're not there for the long term versus, your example, Bob, that individual that owns the building,
Correct.
you know, he's ready to spend that 30% more.
You bet.
You know,
Did you come up in the elevator down here? By the
yeah,
way?
I ride an elevator anywhere I go, not because of laziness.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, well, you want to explore it,
Yeah,
right?
That's right.
absolutely.
It's your infinite curiosity.
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
awful.
So yeah, the elevator here leaves a lot to be desired in this building.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And what we noticed is during like COVID, because a lot of tenants moved out,
Right.
we noticed kind of a pretty big spike in people buying interiors because they want their building to be the nicest when whoever's coming back or signing new leases.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, we all ride them.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
especially in a higher rise building, you're going to get on the elevator.
And you're
every
looking,
day.
what are you looking at?
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely right.
Yeah.
Sure.
It sets the feel, no different than when I came up to see you guys.
Yeah.
Like you said, you have an older interior. I'm not saying it's a bad elevator, but
It's okay
never
to say.
being here and not being, you know, you could be like, if it was glass and had logos in it and everything, you know, you would get a different feel when you ride up
and
on
get
that
a
elevator.
completely different vibe.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So let's talk, if you're comfortable talking about the industry and kind of, you know, some of the things that you see, you know, coming down the pike for the industry of elevator cabs, right? Are there different considerations that are happening in the future? Is an elevator cab going to be an elevator cab now, and in 25 years it's going to be an elevator cab?
Yeah, absolutely. Because of the rules and regulations, they won't let it advance quite the way we would like to see it advance.
Mm.
You know, we've looked in and done some really deep research on LED walls,
Right. Sure.
you know, and being able to, and really in the big scheme of things, they're not crazy expensive. You know,
Right.
we can make
Not
it
anymore.
work.
That's
We
right.
can make it work. The problem is they're not changing the code. So I don't know if you guys have noticed that with prior guests, but like the code's 15 years behind
Sure.
of what we really need it to be
Right.
for that
You
interior.
bet.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think there's a,
Is there? Let me kind of push on
Sure.
that a little bit. So is the industry unwilling to spend resources to update the standards because they don't have a budget to look at that stuff? Like, let's say that the material required now, and this is just an example, is stainless steel, and it's, you know, a 1/4 inch stainless steel is the mandatory wrap. Okay.
yep.
And you say, hey, if we made this molded plastic over LED, perhaps we could innovate. And they say, well, we don't have the money to do the fire standards and all the stuff to test that. That's a good idea, but see you later.
See you
kid.
later.
That's right. Yeah. So to clarify that a little bit, it's the states and nationally is who writes those codes.
Right.
Okay.
So they're the ones that have to approve. You know, you can't get anything right now in an LED wall, for instance, that's going to pass the fire ratings inside
Correct.
an elevator cab.
Right.
That's what's unfortunate. So two things need to happen. They either need to lower the standard inside there,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Or
Yeah.
or not do anything, you know, and,
Right.
and keep it the way that it is now. So
And that's kind of where they're at.
that's where they're at
Yeah.
right now. Now we continue to innovate. We have an R&D department.
Mhm.
So we're always doing some innovation. They had some cabs that they started in the early 2000s called MRL. So typically with elevators, you've got basically three different styles. You have a hydraulic elevator.
Mhm.
You have a traction elevator that runs on cables.
Yep.
Okay. You know, with counterweighting. And then you have what's called an MRL elevator, and that's called a machine roomless elevator. What that is that is your most economical. Think of your hotel going up next to the interstate.
Right.
Very
Okay.
economical. The materials are a lot less expensive, if you will, for the end user. However, durability and to be able to take the weight there's been nothing out there up to this point since about 2004 to be able to fit that. And I'm proud to say that last year at our national convention, it's called the NAEC, you know, National Elevator Contractor Association, we launched our product to fix that. So now with that MRL that no one could, you know,
Crack into that
service that
space.
market,
Right. Yeah.
we were able to find something that fit the fire rating,
Right.
you know, and fit the weight. So we didn't have to worry about trying to lobby to be able to get something changed. We
Have a
were able to fit it in that
deviation,
straight, you know, in that constraint. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
So really excited
So
about
you
that.
guys were leading the innovation then.
We are.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
we are. And I am proud to say in the last 9 years, we've won what's called the Ellie's Award. That is the best interior supplier in the United States.
Yeah.
And
Awesome.
our customers vote on that, which that's a very prideful thing. You know,
Sure.
Yeah.
what that told us is we're listening.
Yeah.
You know, we're listening to what they're saying, and there was a need there. So we spent quite a bit of dollars, and that goes back to the capital that we talked about. You know, if you're poking at something that hasn't been, there was no answer for before, it's going to cost a lot of money to figure out what
You
the
bet.
answer is.
And
You know?
sometimes you're not sure what that end is, right?
Right.
Yeah, there was, for every one win we've got 9 failures,
Right,
you know,
yeah.
of what we looked at.
Yeah, nobody
But-
remembers all those, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
except your
Yeah, if you would have quit after 9, you wouldn't have got to 10.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Had the
The
whole
old WD-40 story, you know,
Yes,
39
yes,
times, you know,
yes.
yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's funny. Change track a little bit.
Yeah.
What do you like to do for fun?
Yeah. So, fun for me is I really like learning. I travel a lot. So podcasts for me and self-learning is very enjoyable. I like a lot of ebooks, stuff like that.
Awesome.
But outside of work, I would say that's mostly outdoors. I really enjoy hunting. That's probably my number one passion.
Nice.
Yeah.
And,
Deer hunting?
pardon?
Deer?
Deer hunting?
Oh yeah. Deer. Yeah. Deer, turkey. Yeah. Do a little fishing.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm kind of an outdoor guy.
Nice.
I really enjoy that. I don't have quite the time I want to spend as much out in the woods as I can.
Right.
But, you know, it's getting better as the years progress. You
Yeah.
know, the one thing that I, you know, I was reflecting before I came to talk with you all, you know, and I thought, you know, what is really different with my life today versus what it was when we started the company.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, I used to take 3 weeks off to hunt. I hunted 5 days last year.
Right.
The reason I bring that up is I think with the business owners out there, you're going to have to accept some sacrifices.
Sure.
Now, I'm starting to
Edge off a bit.
edge off,
Yeah.
starting to hunt a little bit more.
It's all right.
But,
Yeah.
but, you know, I think as much as I love it, and I told you it's my number one outside of my family, you know, my wife and my daughter
Sure.
and her husband spend the time with. That is my number one thing I love to do. I just don't have a lot of time to do it.
Right.
You know, unfortunately.
Right now.
Yeah, right now,
Right.
but it's yeah, for sure. But you know, I really wish that there was a playbook, if you will, to be able to tell you up front, these are some things that are the negatives.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Right.
That-
I mean, they are. I always joke with friends that I know that own their own business, and we always say shackled by the freedom,
Yes.
right? I mean, you have the freedom to exercise your
off.
choice.
You bet.
You still have a boss. It's called your paycheck to yourself, to your employees,
Yeah.
to your clients. Those are
Yeah.
your bosses, right?
yeah,
And it's different, and there's always a sacrifice involved with taking time off. There is. I mean, no one's going to pick up and take your work when you're not at work, right?
absolutely.
So whatever the unique things that you're adding to that enterprise are, is when you're not there, they are actually missed. They're felt.
Yes, and it's the one does not outweigh the other. That's why I
Right,
haven't
yeah.
hunted for 3 weeks. You know,
Yeah.
it's you got to get it right. And once it's right, I think there's time. I'm a patient person.
Yeah.
You know, the time will come.
You bet.
Yes,
You know?
exactly.
But it's okay. I'm having a great time. You know, work is my hobby. You know,
Yeah.
I when you really love something, you're passionate about it.
It's not as much
it's not a
work,
big
is it?
deal. Yeah,
Exactly.
It's not work. You
Yeah.
know?
So what's next for you inside of the company? I mean, are you fostering other salespeople underneath of you to kind of take over,
Yes.
you know, the day-to-day role, and then you're kind of providing strategy and oversight, or where are you at with that?
Yeah, so I've learned a ton. Sales myself was great. Leadership, on the other hand, is
A little different
something. Yeah, it's a little different animal. And what I mean by that is I've had to learn how to coach people that don't have the personality and traits that I do.
Right.
I can coach someone that has the same traits as I do. So, you know, I got a great sales manager, you know, David. He is doing a great job, and he is going to be that guy, you know, to relieve me, and he relieves me right now, you know, with the team. But you know, we have 8 salespeople on our team right now,
Nice.
you know, and I'm learning more and more how important a playbook is, you know, to make sure our playbook is right on the money. We do have a playbook. Once again, our president's vision early on, he's like, listen, we need to start working on this for when we do hire our first sales.
What
Right.
are you selling, right?
Yeah. So I'm learning a lot about that right now. And I think once we get all that tightened up, I think it's going to relieve me a lot. So I think, putting that work in up front right now on that, as our sales team grows, it's really easy to lead 3 people.
Yeah.
It's really hard to lead the more they 8, and we've posted to hire some more salespeople. So
Awesome.
That's great.
Yeah. I always ask owners, when they're complaining about their salespeople.
Yeah.
They're not selling, they're not
That's right.
generating.
That's
I said,
right.
Well, what are they selling?
Yep. Yeah.
And they kind of look at me funny, and it's like, no, define what you're asking them to sell. Well,
Yep.
we sell elevator wraps, right? But we sell interiors. Okay. What can they sell? What can they
Yes.
do? What decisions can they make? Where do all the quotes go? Who does the quotes?
Right.
How long does it take to get a quote?
Yes.
And you start adding all those things up right over time, and they really kind of figure out that they're the constraint a lot of times versus the salesperson. And the
Yes.
salesperson isn't doing a bad job.
Yeah.
They're constrained. They have constraints that they have to deal with every day. And so you see sometimes, but people will leave because of the frustration.
Yes.
If you can now take that and say, okay, what do they need and what playbook
Yes.
do they need,
Yep.
and let them go do it. That's every salesperson's job. It's all their dream, right? Let me go sell, but I need to know what I'm selling.
That's right.
So if you're heading down that path, that is fantastic.
Yeah. We recently got a consultant that came in to help us with some of the personalities and understand it
Mhm.
more clearly throughout the company. One of the better spins that we've done.
Yeah.
So I realized when I got their profiles back, I realized very quickly that the playbook needs to change.
Yeah.
Because the playbook was written towards my
For you.
attributes.
That's
Yes.
right.
And the one thing, I could sit and complain about the salespeople as well, but I've tried to take the outlook, if you will, every time is if they're struggling, it's my fault. And I got to figure out why they're struggling.
Great attitude.
Yes.
Really.
Yeah.
It's my fault if sales are down.
Right.
I've just got to work with my team. David, my sales manager, we have multiple long conversations on how we're going to change this. Let's make sure it fits everybody. And I think the end result of doing that, when you take off blaming others, lets you see the solution a lot more clear, if that makes
You
sense.
bet.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. It does. Awesome.
Final thoughts?
Yeah. Yeah. How can people find you if they
Yeah.
wanted to, use you to renovate an old elevator?
They can find us at FabACab.com, and that is FabACab.com. Log on. You've got a contact link to hit. Go check our website out. We'd be happy to get with you and design something that'd be looking beautiful for you.
That's
Love
awesome. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, I
Love to
appreciate
have
you
you back
guys.
on in
Yeah,
probably,
absolutely.
18 months or so
You
after you
bet.
get through this playbook process.
Yeah, absolutely. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.